Also on the politics stack here, Washington Post, confidence in Obama reaches new low. Washington Post, ABC News poll finds. And these are even Cook polls. But you're talking about basically roughly about a 40% approval rating for the president. Here's another one. Majority of Americans lack faith in Obama. Poll shows Reuters. Here's one out of the AP. Obama poll, opinion poll. Public sides with Arizona over U.S. on new immigration law. So that shows that all the media spin and disinformation and the hoax that they've launched, saying that it's about racism, is completely failing. Also, key U.S. Senate panel puts off Supreme Court vote. This is out of AFP, but it's seen as largely symbolic because they're just going to vote in the committee a week later for Elena Kagan on July 20th, and they've got more than enough votes. All they need is 50, and right now they've got at least 58 votes for her to be approved, and that just shows you the dire straits we're in and how the United States is being converted into a full-fledged oppressive tyranny. We are dying as a free nation, as the rest of the world is as well, under the same globalist management. This is a woman who openly is anti-free speech, openly anti-Second Amendment, openly anti-family, openly authoritarian, and it will be the worst Supreme Court justice in history, there's no doubt. I mean, no one has ever been this bold in saying they can disappear free speech. That's a quote. Rand Paul, meanwhile, is under fire for saying poor in U.S. better off than poor elsewhere, citing government studies. I mean, how is he under attack for that? I point out that the poor in this country are per capita would be considered wealthy compared to people in Latin America and Africa and poor areas of Asia. There are many areas of the world where people make less than $500 a year. There's some countries, in fact, I want the actual statistics. Will you guys pull up yearly pay averages nation by nation? Because I know some nations, they make less than $100 a year. And that's converted into U.S. dollars. And, of course, the poorest people in the United States are at least getting around $14,000 or more in welfare. So this is the way they attack Rand Paul, with just absolute garbage. Another key story in the politics section of Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Bilderberg, corporate media mogul, wrote speech for Obama. Paul Joseph Watson, new revelation emphasizes fact that Obama is nothing more than a sock puppet for the global elite. And on Neil Cavuto's program yesterday, Mortimer Zuckerman wrote that, yes, he writes Obama's speeches, and also said that Obama is treading water. But, of course, Obama went to that Bilderberg meeting, and they decided at that meeting that Hillary would step down and be the head of the State Department. We were at that event. We knew where to be there in Virginia. The rest of the media knew full well where Obama and Hillary were, but played along with the ruse. And then after the meeting, that next day, they announced that Hillary would be stepping down. So just to show you the power of the Bilderberg Group, very important article there. Another story, Obama to attend groundbreaking for LG Chem plant in the United States. And this, is, of course, is a South Korean company. I've got to say to the South Koreans, at least they build Samsung plants in the United States. At least they build chemical plants and other facilities like solar plants in the United States. I would rather stimulus money, if we're going to have it, go to fully fledged U.S. companies, but those really don't exist because of globalization. But it could be broken up and given to a group of smaller U.S. companies that exist. There are some smaller companies. But this is being criticized, and I really don't think that that is something that's fair to do, other than the fact that this is globalization. But I think kicking the South Koreans around, I mean, how about criticizing Obama for giving billions of dollars to move a GM plant to Brazil, or GM plants to Russia or Eastern Europe or China? That is very serious. But I do have a problem with it being a Korean company, but there's much bigger fish to fry. And the Koreans, of course, have a much better liking for the United States than many of these other globalist operation-run countries. Michelle Obama rouses NAACP before vote condemning racist elements of the Tea Party. And we have time later, I'll play a clip of this, but she got up there and said black people are in trouble, black people are being hit hardest by the recession, and then basically blamed the Tea Party This is so black people don't become populist. It's so they feel like they can't be part of a move to cut taxes and to have jobs here in the United States. And it just reminds me of how before the Great Society and before black women were paid to not have a man in the house, you had less than 50% illegitimacy, and you had very wealthy, affluent black areas in every city who own their own businesses. And those are gone now. And you have over 90% illegitimacy. And, of course, more than half of black males end up basically spending more than a decade in prison. I think the numbers are much higher than a half. And, of course, the, quote, liberal black leaders are there to ensure eugenics are carried out and that more than 51% of blacks are aborted before they ever exist. And Obama has massively increased abortion and sterilization funding in Africa. But that's okay. They can point their finger at the Tea Party, black people's basic only hope. We are back live. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday transmission. We're going to be opening the phones up later in the hour. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. Wide open phones, 800-259-9231. We're going to take calls throughout the full broadcast today. Okay, let's continue with the stacks here. Let's go ahead and get into the financial group of important news today. And there's even more that we're going to cover later, but let me start getting into this now. Central banks start to abandon the U.S. dollar. How long have we talked about this here on the broadcast? How long have we been criticized for putting out gloom and doom? I mean, I've read the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations. I've read what the United Nations has said for more than a decade, that they plan to build their world empire with U.S. money, and then blame the United States for all the crimes they've committed, and then implode our economy and bring it into receivership. The United States cannot be number one if you're going to have a world government. What has Obama said? That part of globalism is that no nation can be wealthier or greater than any other. All must be lowered so the international elite can control society. And what has the news been reporting the last 2 days? Headlines everywhere. China to be the new engine of the world. China to save the world. China to be the industrialized giant. China to be the new lender. China to be the heart of the new global currency, the cashless SDRs. You'll still have your regional currencies, but it'll be set and predominantly backed by the Chinese. What did the Council on Foreign Relations say over a decade ago? That by 2010, you would see the dawn of the new Chinese century and the end of the United States. Why? Because China has one-child policies. They have a police state. They have selective private property only for the elites. They are the model. And now you see the treason. Oh, the answer is a global government backed by China. Oh, the answer, the only economy we've got is China. They're our savior. We've got, and the IMF and World Bank criticizing the United States and criticizing our debt that they literally engineered on record. They create the crisis, offer the solution. But the point is, we are now here at this point. It is now happening. Central banks start to abandon the U.S. dollar. I guess Gerald Salente's right on his timing. We knew this was coming, but 2010, it looks like it's going to be the year where it all gets announced, and 2011 and 12 is when it gets implemented. And that's really all we had left was our dollar. Being the world reserve currency, they could just print dollars and you could get cheap Chinese goods. They don't need us anymore. And now they've got all the increased taxes to shut down what's left of the economy. And if that isn't enough, each one of these a bullet to our collective heads. They're going to fire another buckshot 12-gauge scatter at point-blank range into our head with the carbon taxes that China, India, Mexico, and over 100 other countries don't have to implement. Those are global tariffs against us, global taxes against us only the West. Now, after all our freedoms are eradicated, a few decades from now, there'll be a little industry left. Central banks to start abandoning the U.S. dollar. There's mounting evidence that central banks have little faith in the greenback these days. Can we blame them, CNN says. Can we blame them? They don't like what happened. They didn't engineer it. They're taking over right now. But, again, they care. Here's another one, the Chinese. Oh, Chinese rating agency strips Western nations of AAA status. The Chinese rating agency, when they own the majority of European and U.S. debt, they're now globally putting another nail in our coffin. China's leading credit rating agency has stripped America, Britain, Germany, and France of their AAA ratings and accused the Anglo-Saxon competitors of ideological bias in favor of the West. That's right. The globalists did everything they could to transfer our wealth there, and then China gets to be nationalistic and racial and bash whitey. And when it's the big central banks doing that, because, again, get rid of the borders of the West, fund every foreign nation bashing white people, get rid of the Western culture that gave us the Magna Carta, get rid of it at all cost.